Hey everyone, Gene here from Exploring the Myth. Remember, you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram for exclusive clips and images, behind the scenes footage, as well as updates on future podcasts and stories.
Put in the exercise, boys.
Dude, you were wrong and we were right, Richard. Just get over it, dude.
It all ties.
Welcome to Exploring the Myth podcast.
Exploring the Myth podcast.
Where we'll take a dive into the dark and unknown parts of the world. Now, here with your guides, Omar, Richard, and Gene.
So what's up, fellas?
So
you want to talk about something?
What are we talking about today?
Let me tell y'all what we're talking about.
What'd you pick? What are we doing? What's the thing?
Today, we're talking about the Acheri. It's...
The what?
The Acheri. It's spelled Acheri. Some cultures...
Not
what?
Acheri.
You're throwing me off, Rich. What's up? Oh, sorry.
No, we all called it Acheri for like the first week or two.
Yeah, Acheri.
It's an odd name. It makes me think of like acres of land. But
Yeah. Well, we were calling it...
it's just really important for you to know that that's what I felt about it. I had to tell you.
We were calling it Acheri.
That sounds better.
Richard was calling it archery. You kept on calling it archery. Throwing an R in there.
I called it Acheri.
And to me, that doesn't sound like a being. Honestly, the Acheri sounds kind of creepy. It sounds like the Acheri. Like it sounds like I would see that.
Sounds like an egg. Like I see an egg hatching.
Yeah.
So some cultures call it a demon. Some cultures call it a nature spirit, which is kind of like a ghost. This one website, this one source that I got it from says the Acheri are said to be created when a young girl dies a tragic and untimely death. Her spirit, tormented and cut off too short, comes back to cause the suffering of still living people. It often targets young children, causing them the same fate and dooming them to become an Acheri as well. Oh, Acheri as well. See, I did it right there too. So that's the gist.
Is there any?
That's the gist of it.
So that's scary. But is there any? What was I going to say? I had a question. I had a legitimate question, and Gene messed it up.
Classic.
Well,
Okay.
I'll go on, and you think
Good
about
deal.
what you're going to say. So it usually presents itself as a small, pale, sickly young girl. If the Acheri's target is a child, they will often try to gain their trust by playing with them. If it's an adult, they'll try to appear like they're in danger or need help to try to gain their trust. Like, try to, seem like a sad little child. You're going to always see if it's okay. They're also known to change appearances based on what will most appeal to the victim. So yeah, that's kind of crazy. They're shapeshifters as well. So
I remember
know,
now what my question was. So the Acheri, is it one that sucks in souls, or is there many Acheries? So like every time a kid dies from abuse or mistreatment or whatever, there's an extra Acheri added to the world, or is there one Acheri that takes on the soul?
It seems like they replace each other.
No,
right?
From my understanding, from my research, they multiply, but it's not every young girl who dies a tragic death. The first Acheri was created and is out there causing more. So if that Acheri causes your death, then you become an Acheri as well, is my understanding from the research I did.
You can't have, so there's one main Acheri, hatching Acheries. There's one Acheri that first got started, happened to have a tragic death. And then she created other Acheries by targeting young children. But what if any child dies from like a bad situation, like abuse? Can they become an Acheri through that, even if it wasn't an Acheri that killed them?
I honestly don't know. In my research, it's such an old tale and folklore that...
And that one's from India, right?
This one, some people say it started in India in Hindu, and some people say it started in Mexico. So I'm not exactly sure where it originated from, but yeah. I would say India is probably the older way that it's said.
There's some
Yeah.
Native American
Yeah.
folklore about it too. In the ones that I found that they would go down and attack the whole village. Not attack it, but they would cast this.
Yeah,
like,
let's
shadow
explain
on
the
whole
shadow
village.
thing because I want that to be under like because we talked a little bit about who it would target, but how does it unleash its bad thing? What happens? So it, like you said, you have a child that died and it's getting other Acheri, and it can be like a childlike form, like we can play together, and then or it can be like whatever your desire is. What does it do to you? What is it?
So it makes sure to cast its shadow over you, and that automatically gives you an illness. It's an upper respiratory illness. It sounds weird, I know, but it starts spreading in your body and dooming you to death immediately from having the shadow over you. So yeah, it's basically like a death omen. Once you are underneath the shadow, then you change instantly.
It's also super
lo-
contagious too, right?
It lures you
contagious,
in
yes.
for whatever works the best. If you're a kid, it's another kid that wants to play. If you're a weirdo and like you like bunny shoes, it'll be like bunny shoes that attracts you. Just whatever they do to get you in
Yeah.
the shadow. And then when you get the shadow, you get an upper rest. Is it that specific? It says upper respiratory illness.
Yes, exactly. I know that's why I laughed. It was like it's kind of like so specific, but you get like a horrible hacking cough, and the illness travels from your it's breathed into your lungs immediately upon like when you feel the shadow over you. So it sounds pretty like a movie the way it happens, and it travels to your whole body, and you're doomed to death.
Yeah. Well,
Go
so what
ahead,
I
Gene.
found. Oh, go on. Yeah, what I found, which is exactly what you said. The demon cast its shadow like a contagious net, and the falling of the Acheri's shadow is like the breath of someone who has a highly communicable respiratory disease, breathing directly.
What does
into
that
your
sound
lungs.
like?
Like what would happen? Like what would happen in Mount?
What does that sound like? A highly contagious
What have we been doing?
respiratory. What does that sound like?
Yeah,
It sounds like the Acheri started COVID.
Sure the fuck does.
seriously,
That's
oddly. That's what I thought.
Oddly specific that it's upper respiratory, and I don't know the difference between upper and lower, but I know it's a respiratory issue with COVID, and that it's highly contagious. Obviously, the Acheri has been around before COVID, so
Don't they feed off misery too of their victims?
Yes, I hadn't gotten there yet, but
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Jumping ahead.
It's just what you said. Where is it? They're said to feed and gain power from human misery. So spreading death and disease allows the Acheries to feed and grow more powerful. So it's pretty wild stuff. One of the other, okay, so I told y'all one of the legends that it comes and plays with you or presents itself as a hurt child to an adult. I believe it's the Hindu legend of it has a kind of cooler one. I think it's kind of, I could visualize it a little bit more scarier. At night, when darkness falls, you hear the Acheri coming down the hills from the mountains, and it starts singing or playing drums, and it's kind of like this faint sound that starts coming in. And if you see her dancing, or if you hear the singing or drumming, then you're doomed. You don't have to be casted by the shadow. You just have to hear it or see her. That one's pretty scary because I can kind of see that in my head like a movie. So
imagine just camping in the woods, or like we're hanging out at like the river house or the cabin, and you just hear some like singing randomly in the woods.
Exactly.
That's creepy.
That's why
And you see
that one
someone
kind of
random-
gives me the willies a little bit more than the other.
yeah, that one
version.
seems more movie scary. But like when I think of real life, the whole being able to be whatever you desire, or like whatever's gonna most likely get you to get drawn in, is scarier to me. Like the fact that it's that intelligent. So it's not just that it has the ability to shape shift. It has the ability to look inside your mind and know what you like and then be that. That's a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like that's a
Not even what you like.
That's a good point.
What you would like want to nurture. What you'd be,
whatever
like,
brings you close
nurturing
enough to
toward.
get the shadow. Like that's
Yeah.
so it's telekinesis or not telekinesis, but it's like reading minds on top of being able to shapeshift. And That's some evil shit. Well, and so like you were saying with the spirit thing too. What I saw was there was spirit, and then I also saw some things that were like they were demons that take the form of children in order to play this out. So yeah, some of it was like even the kid thing with me is like, okay, so you died a horrible death, and I like in my mind that those children are like special angels that are taken care of and treated better in the afterlife because they had a horrible death or something like that. It's like a double death to be doomed to like, and now after this horrible death from abuse or neglect or like whatever, just horrible parents, now you get to go take the lives of other little kids. It just seems making it a demon feels better to me. Like a demon.
That's a good point. It does seem more demon-like to have that hostility. Like, you're right. The spirit was, or the person was doomed to a young, untimely death. So therefore, they're going to come back and avenge. Avenge what? They're just going to take it out on all the other little happy children. Yeah. That's a good point. It sounds evil. It does sound evil. It's not just a ghost. It sounds more
with a lot malevolent. Of those myths. Like if it is a spirit or like a specific person coming back, there's usually something you do to bring it upon you. So it's like a consequence. But from what I read, there's nothing you do or did that there's a consequence for the Acheri to come get you. It was just like, I want to kill little kids.
Well, you did. You were just happy and living a normal, great childhood. That's all.
There's no like, well, you stuck your hand in the well and everyone knows not to do that. So the Acheri is probably going to look for you. Or like the freaking Brugaroo, or if you didn't do your what is it, lint, it would come and kill you. Like there's nothing that I read that brought upon the Acheri other than it just comes at anyone it feels like, and just children. And that seems more evil. That it like spirits and a specific girl or a specific little boy that died a horrible death or whatever. I don't know. It just, why would they be like? How do we know? They would have to have been evil already. Like, so were they evil kids and they deserve to die? And then like their evilness carried over. But most of the time, like those are heartbreaking stories. Like, and you'll always hear, there's documentaries or like news stories, and you hear like she was the sweetest girl and she didn't deserve this, and like it's always like the most sweet kids and that they never deserve it. And so all of a sudden, when they die, they become evil. Why? Like, why?
Do you think it's location specific? So a lot of these are like tribes and villages and stuff. So do you think that might have to do something with it? Because they're in like, the mountains and the woods.
I think that has to do with where these types of legends and tales come from. But whenever Richard's trying to break it down like more logically, I don't think that plays too much into it. You know what I mean? I think he's just trying to figure out why would it happen to this. But I mean, if we say demon, then that's perfectly logical. It is taking advantage of the situation. It knows that, you know what I mean? It could take advantage of this little,
or like it's hiding it. It's concealing what it really is behind a story or a myth of like, oh, it's from a little girl that died a horrible death or a child, when really it's just demons taking the form of little kids. And
people believing it
that's fair. That's fair.
People believing that would be what keeps it alive, kind of in this mythology that we're trying to figure out, because that's why that they use that story to mask what it really is. If it just comes out as a big demon, then you're going to be like praying that stuff away, or trying to get it away. Then, but if it's masking as a little girl, it's like
you're confused. You don't know what's attacking you. And the other thing too, so it becomes highly intelligent with these superpowers, right? And it conniving, it's tricking you on purpose to come play. If you're a kid or if you're an adult, pretend like you're a hurt child. You're manipulating the person to get close enough for you. And manipulation is like a personality characteristic that if you didn't have in life, why would you have it in death? Like, why would you all of a sudden become very manipulative, evil, just heartless, soulless, cold? It just doesn't seem, I just don't feel that connection. Like from a sweet child to now I'm gonna trick people and kill them. It seems very much more demonic.
Yeah. But that's what, yeah, or it could be some kind of creature because that is what it feeds off of. So because there's other types of monsters out there where they feed off of specific things, so that's why they do these things.
Yeah, specifically like human like misery. Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like different energy, and so the more people think about it and believe in it too, like there's some monsters also where it almost gives it purpose or life. The more you think about it or believe it. So say if you didn't, then it wouldn't exist. But if you do, so it's stuff like that.
Yeah, I get that.
Makes sense.
And
It's just scary.
Trying to like play debate or like the devil's advocate to see the other side of it, like how I can see it explained as a soul, as a ghost. Maybe the other side is confusing and you're just you become that and you're angry and you don't know what's going on. And in the movie, someone gives the little girl like a teddy bear, like the evil, the Acheri, a teddy bear, and then it finally like ascends to like the to the next world. Yeah. But it's like stuck here because of unfinished business, or it's kind of confused. I feel like that's how a movie would explain it. Like
it could be a spirit. It could be that specific child that died under those circumstances or died from the Acheri that turns into the Acheri, and they're encouraged or taught by like demons and demonic things like, this is what you need to do to get to the other side, or just by tricking them. They're children. So it's easy to trick kids. Like, no, this is going to help them. Every time you get them in their shadow, it's going to help them to do that. So you have to trick them to get to the shadow. But I feel like there has to be some source of evil behind it. And I don't see it coming from like a person or and it's children. I don't see it coming from a child, that evil. I think that evil is, the children might be exploited into doing those things from the evilness or the demons or the devil or whatever.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
no, I think that too. I was just trying to work out how a movie would try to explain that.
Yeah, if I did,
and we also go on.
If I did it like a movie, that's how I would do it. I would make the kid a victim twice. So the kid would be a victim by horrible parents, untimely death for whatever horrific reason, and then also like tricked into like, but I don't want to hurt people. And then the devil's like, you're not. No, well, not even that. Like, you're not hurting people, child. You're helping them with your shadow. No. Oh, okay.
But you must feed.
Right. And so like the kid's manipulated a second. You know what I mean? It's like 2 times. And then finally at the end, there's like an angel or somebody like that. Like you said, a teddy bear, and then they ascend to heaven.
They ascend or to wherever they're going.
It's heaven.
Wherever they're going.
They
still go to hell.
If you're a little kid, I mean, that's
it's heaven. We're just gonna tell ourselves. Yeah, you're
and
right.
another thing, we don't know. Okay, so we're assuming in this universe we're speaking about that the other side is real, right? Limbo or the other side is real. We don't know what kind of powers, especially a child, would have on the other side. So we're limiting them to what we can do. So you know what I mean? Because like to what you were saying about an evil spirit would have to teach them what to do. Well, we don't know what their powers are limited to. Kids have tantrums. Kids get angry. Kids can do all those things, but they're a child. They're harmless. So how much power do you have after you die and you're on the other side?
You might have a lot of power, but I don't think you changed entirely. Like think of a 6, because it's usually like little kids, right? Like 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever. They're not they're not smart enough to come up with that level of manipulation and just have the scheme, the plan in their head. It would have had to have been told to them. Either supernaturally it gets infused to them like, oh, now I know my purpose. It's to get people in shadows and die like me. Or it's taught to them like, this is what, and the teaching is either a manipulated way of teaching them where they don't really realize what they're doing, or they're teaching them to be evil and like it. And like, no, this is bad. This is, let your anger out. Let it, do that. But I don't,
Oh,
I just don't see how like through, even if they went over to this other dimension that existed as a child and like, so all of a sudden they have these superpowers, their cognitive ability, I just don't see it like jumping that high for no reason other than being taught like how to read people's minds and how to shift into like.
It's a demon. It's a demon. It's for sure a demon.
Or it's just a story to keep the kids out of going and playing in the woods.
There's too much. Oh, it just gave me chills. Like everything that connects to what's been going on this year would make sense if you went with an Acheri explanation. Like if someone's like, I know, like
that's true. It's weird.
there's not a single thing that saying the Acheri wouldn't explain. It's upper respiratory illness, highly contagious, feeds off of misery. People are like highly depressed, highly upset, highly lonely, staying at home, and that's misery. People get their jobs lost, and economies are ruining. And it's worldwide. It's not like we know what's going on in our part of the world, but it's going on all over the world. So that's kind of creepy that there's this myth that very much lines up with COVID, and no one in the news is talking about
it. No.
It really is that whole connection. I mean, the respiratory disease is very specific, like we said. So maybe that's what we're dealing with here, bro.
Well, and then they'd have to have the self-awareness too, that like they couldn't just come to them in a natural form, because it would scare them away, and that'd be the opposite of what you wanted, because you want them in the shadow. So they're it's so evil. Like it's you're presenting yourself as something that's attractive, not like in a sexual way, but attractive in a way that you're attracting that person to you, which is just the most evil thing, because so many creatures have long fangs and long fingers, and they come at you, and it's like that nightmare where you're running, and they're smart enough to know, like, it's so cold-blooded too, because it's just such a matter-of-fact thing. Like, I'm gonna get my shadow on you, and you're gonna die from a horrible disease that hopefully spreads to a lot of people too. It doesn't really give you that chance to escape. Like Jason with the mask, you see the mask with Jason, you run. It's an immediate alarm in your head. I'm out of here. This guy's coming after me. You see
it's the Black Death. It's just
Brugeroo popping out of the swamp. I'm gone. Forget this dude. Bloody Mary. I don't even want to say it in the mirror. Like, I'm not even gonna. Or if I do, I know there's something scary that's gonna happen. This is so much more insidious because it doesn't give you the chance to get away, because it's not trying to scare you. It's just trying to kill you.
No. Trying to get
that brings me to, how do we protect ourselves? Because there are a few ways to actually keep the Acheri at bay. So one of the first ways is a holy or blessed charm, just to keep that on you. If you tie a red thread or ribbon around your neck, that prevents. And really, like anything red, apparently the color red has, for like centuries, been like a protection against evil. It's been used in different like legends and stuff. So having anything red tied around you, a red amulet, charm, would keep the Acheri at bay. So that would be just something that part of your daily routine. You're like, okay, we know these exist. One of the cooler ways in the Chippewa myth, the Chippewa Indians, they said, if you wrap a red cloth of a medicine woman around the neck of an Acheri, it will put an end to the Acheri. Like, you'll destroy it. So I thought that was pretty cool. So
you gotta get close enough.
Yeah,
to do that, right?
But how many of these stories is there a way to like kill it? You know, that's kind of cool. So
yeah, it is nice to know that there's a solution to the problem.
That's what the Chippewas came up with.
It seems symbolic, which makes it so much more demonic than it does like a spirit. Because there's nothing, they're wearing red doesn't scare children. So
just like the cross with the demon.
Well, like symbolic. Gene.
I was comparing. Yeah,
you were just naming random symbols after I said symbolic. Yeah. So like for whatever reason, red might be a symbol that a demon wouldn't like, or maybe like a cross. What do you think, Gene? Would a cross be like a symbol that would?
Well, yeah.
Garlic. I don't know.
It left it open to blessed charm as well. So something blessed. It doesn't have to be red, but the red was very much emphasis. Like
that's the most I saw. But yeah, that makes it seem even more demonic that there's some symbol or color that keeps it away. Because why would a kid care if you're wearing a red, thing around your neck? Like
true.
Why would a child care about that? Why would a child care if you have something blessed? Only something evil would be scared away by, for whatever reason, a color, a symbol, something being blessed. It seems to take it, for me, it removes it even more from it's the spirit of a child to it's more evil, like there, or at least if it's not an actual evil being doing it, it's being manipulated or driven by an evilness.
Yeah. Hindu had a weird one to ward it off. They had one way is beating a brass dish vigorously would apparently place the potential victim, so yourself, into a trance and a dancing frenzy. And in that trance and frenzy, you would learn what sacrifice would satisfy the Acheri. I know that's a lot, like that was a mouthful, but are y'all following that?
That makes that. Well, no, just from a logical, I know it sounds silly, but to my logic, that makes so much more sense because the Acheri wants something. Without that, like I'm left with this. There's nothing you want. There's nothing that summons you, and there's nothing that's going to stop you. You're just a killing machine, and we don't know why. If we knew why, maybe we could stop it. Other than wearing like the red. But if it's something that they want, well, then hey, that makes me feel a little bit better. I'll bang a copper pot or whatever it was. And
it's like it's a ritual. It's like what they do, in voodoo or medicine doctors. They have rituals, and it sounds funny to read it, but when you think of it as like this ritual, this big thing where you kind of get into this elevated trance and you see, they want a goat or whatever. They want 50 goats or that's what will satisfy this being, this entity. Then that is kind of interesting to think about.
Sacrifice it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those sacrificial things, like there's a ton of myths that have sacrifices involved with it. And to me, my opinion, from my point of view, is it was simply a way. It's human nature to want to feel like you're in control of your environment and like you have an answer for something. It doesn't feel good to really contemplate. I don't know if you've ever done like a deep dive into like the universe on Discovery Channel, where like it talks about like how big it is, and there's this weird feeling you get, and you're like, I'm so small, and it's uncomfortable. I think that might be a way for, in a time where someone can't explain an illness or a disease that spreads, it's kind of a way that like, this is why, because maybe they don't know about germs or bacteria or viruses that spread. But since I don't know, and I don't like that feeling, I don't know if they like purposely lie or if they just believe it so much. Well, or they could just get really drunk or whatever and like beat on it.
That's what we do. We do
that now for a lot of stuff, kind of, but especially in times of where you wouldn't know what an illness is caused from, I could very much see that being a sense almost, and it seems weird to call it a sense of comfort, but sometimes thinking something, even though you're wrong, is more comforting than just telling yourself, like, I genuinely don't know. I don't understand. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And so even if it's in the form of this horrible Acheri and you got to do this pot thing and whatever, okay, like maybe there's a few people that really know it doesn't work, but they're like, hey, if it makes everybody calm down and like, it's for the betterment of everybody, not to freak out. And then if we do have one, we have a disease that comes through, nothing we could do about it anyway, because we generally don't know what's causing it, but we could always come up with like a different sacrifice next year or something. I mean, it's and it sounds oversimplified, but that's just logically, I see it so clear. Like to me, it seems so obviously a way of being able to explain something that you can't otherwise explain.
Totally.
I get that. Yeah. Fortunately, we have like scientists and science now. Do you think they would listen to the shamans back then?
I think that's where I was going with it. I was going to say, Native Americans have done that, like for the rain, for crops, for unexplainable diseases, like you said. They would try to cut you and say that's going to release your evil spirits if you drain half of your blood. Praying for the fish, to be plentiful this season. And there are surprisingly, still lots of those people who believe and still do that. As silly as we think it is, they believe that. And I think we've even, you may have seen Stephen Ranella, whenever he was down there with, what people was he with? He was down in like the Amazon and he was saying it would just shoot him out of reality a little bit because he'd be chatting up with his guide, and all of a sudden the guy would start talking about shamans and how there's a jaguar that's, evil. There's so many things that he's like, whoa, I forget that they still believe this. And he obviously respectfully, addressed it. But that's so interesting to us. And we're so far removed from that. But that's how it was. That's how it was for
and
a
we're
lot
not
of
that
things.
far removed from it, to be honest with you. It's still very much human nature to. How many times have you, was at a store or either like you called like a help desk, and instead of the person being like, I don't know, let me try to find someone that can tell you, they're like, no, we don't have that. No, we don't have.
Yeah.
And they don't know. You know they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee you don't. Like, it's online. I see it. It's at your store. Can you please just like, no, it's not here. You're wrong. Okay, like, and that they're just being stubborn. They're just being like, well, it's not laziness, but it's just this inability to accept something unknown. And it's so much more common than you think. It applies to a lot of our daily life. There's, I think I told you the Hawaiian one. I've told you all guys like the Hawaii thing, right? Perfect.
I don't know.
Perfect. Let's do it like this. Between Gene and Omar, you guys are going to be in a contest to see who wins. I want you to, first of all, does anyone just oddly know exactly how many islands make up Hawaii? Perfect.
No.
I know I'm going to
What?
win.
What'd you say, Gene?
I said I know I'm going to win.
That's good thinking. So all you have to do is get the range correct. So Gene, let's start with the range. What is your guess for the range of how many islands there are in Hawaii?
I'm going to go with 7
Okay.
or 5.
Do you know what range means?
5.
Range is range is
Wait, what's the
whatever
range?
you make it.
Okay.
So
I got you. I thought we
whoever
were going
gets
with
the
exact number, my
closest
bad.
on their range is going to be right. So Gene, go ahead. What do you think the range is from lowest to highest for the islands that make up Hawaii? Cool.
1 to
Omar?
10.
Just judging by the way you're asking, it makes me want to really go really high. But that's only because I'm seeing.
You're seeing the point.
So,
You're seeing the point of the exercise, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
But if you would have just casually asked me this,
What would you have
I would
naturally
sincerely have said like 4 to 8. And the way you're looking at me, I want to say like it's 20 to 40.
Nope. Well,
But-
even more than
but
that.
I get the exercise.
So
I get
the exercise, it's even more. It even benefits you even more to somewhat be reasonable because it's a competition between the two of you. But typically, the exercise only goes with one person. So, Gene, you said between 1 and 10, right? And is it correct that I told you could say your own range, and that if the range was correct, you would get that correct, right? Why didn't you say between 0 and 50 billion?
I should have, but I assumed that there was going to be at least one island, and I didn't think there might be more than
Why?
10.
Why would you think that?
I don't know.
Does it feel better to kind of feel like you somewhat know how many islands are in Hawaii instead of going, I completely don't know how many, so between 1 and 50 billion?
Oh, yeah. So
well, assumptions or comfort. It's uncomfortable to feel like you don't know something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. I did do that out of comfort.
And everyone does that.
Assumed.
Everyone does that. It's called the Hawaiian experiment.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to. You
Yeah,
don't
I
have to
took
get
that-
the number right.
I took that totally different. I thought your experiment was going more on like it's a lot, and most people think it's a little bit. That's why I was like saying, "Oh, I think it's just a bigger."
That's
bigger
what
number.
usually.
But now that you open that up,
It makes a lot of sense. I like
it's
it.
definitely for me. If I'm being dead honest, I say a closer range because for a prideful, like ego reason, I want to be like in the same range. If I'm right, then it is a personal,
because it feels good,
thing for me, and I want to be like, oh, because I'm close and I'm right. So that's why I come to that. I don't
even though
the obvious logical.
and most people don't. Almost everyone, everyone goes like, let's say between like 50 and 300. And I just asked you if you knew, and you said you had no idea. Why would you limit your range? Because it makes you it's a comfort to be like, well, I don't know, but I think I know. Like it's just naturally more comforting.
Well, it's just a guess.
Well,
yeah,
it's a guess, but it tells a lot about your guess, right? Because you went between 1 and 10, and you said you didn't know. If your range was between 0 and 10 billion, you'd be right, because the answer lies between 0 and 10 billion.
But what is the
I have
answer?
no idea.
Though?
That's not the
just out of
point. I
curiosity.
have no idea how many islands.
Okay, how many islands are there?
That's not the point. The point is
know
like
now.
when you get in a situation where you totally don't know, you will. It's just human nature to revert to having like you feel like you somewhat know, instead of just accepting like I totally don't know. You want a range 0 to 9,000 billion. Yeah, you're right. It is between 0 and 9,000 billion, but no one does that because everyone hates that feeling of like I don't know. Like it's almost like I have to have an answer. I have to have somewhat of like a range.
Yeah.
Same thing with zippers.
So
Zippers was a great like thing. Everyone thinks they knows how zippers work until they give people they do a study like they put like everything you can make a zipper out of in front of you, and people can't make it. Or drawing a bicycle. So they did this experiment where like everyone knows how a bicycle works, right? So they would draw a bicycle, and then they had this professional welder make a bicycle, and 9 out of 10 bicycles wouldn't work. The way they drew it, the way they designed it, it wouldn't work. But it's just this sense of like, of course I know how a zipper works. Of course I know how a bicycle works. But do you really, like if you had to make your own bicycle with no Google, no YouTube, you probably wouldn't. You probably get it wrong a lot. But you have this false sense of like, I understand it. I know it.
So do you want?
Yeah, how many islands?
Answer?
It's 5,000 something. It's 5,000 something.
There's eight major islands, but the total islands is
137. That's what I said.
So I'll give him.
Right.
I feel
So-
love.
Okay, so the major islands. Okay.
There's 8 major islands, but total islands, according to
Right.
Wikipedia,
Right.
is 137.
So I don't feel bad about my answer now. Oh.
Say
To having an answer for like a disease that wipes out a village. It doesn't have to be a great answer because sometimes, like with the range of Hawaii, you felt better, even though you didn't know, you felt better saying between like 20 and 50. You felt better because you feel like I somewhat have a grasp on how many there are. But in reality, it could be, I could tell you it was 50,000 islands and you'd be like, oh, really? You don't know. You would have no idea. But that
Yeah,
Well, because we're not scientists.
that's why
Also,
in most of those like, that's why in most cultures and societies they would try to get out of their body, whether it's smoking something or dreaming. Someone came to them and said, "I had a dream that this is what we do," and to like hit a drum and dance vigorously, you are going to dizzy yourself up and pretend that you see something.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. And sacrifice, that's as old as time. So anything, the sky god, the sun,
that's
moon
a Christian
god, whatever,
god too. Old
you always
Testament
sacrifice
had Old Testament Bible had sacrifices. So that's
So as old as anything, they've always sacrificed to the higher being, and it's not hard to believe that one actually makes sense, like you said, and that's pretty interesting. And that's honestly part like the movie style that we said about her dancing and coming down the hill. That's actually reminds me of that kind of. It's cool. Like it sounds visually appealing to see that. So yeah, man, that's pretty crazy. The
Acheri.
She's coming for you.
Either by drum, like a very obvious way that you would. That seems like the total opposite way of like it's how I view possessions, and I think I've told you this before. Like, but if there is a devil, which sure, let's say there's a devil, right, and he has these demons. That would be the worst idea in the world to possess people and like admit you're a demon, because then people. What's the first thing you want to do? If you had somebody in your family that you truly believe was possessed, what are you going to do? You're going to seek. You're going to seek God.
Kick 'em out.
You're going to seek God.
Yeah, or someone that can help, like
God.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think it's a demon and you're a Christian and you're like my whatever, my uncle, my nephew, my sister, my brother, it's a demon. They're speaking in different octaves, and it's like my name is whatever. Mm-hmm. You're going to seek Christianity. You're going to seek God to help that. So how does that help?
Yeah.
How does that help? If the objective of the devil or the demon is to pretty much the greatest lie ever told was that the devil didn't exist. That was his greatest lie. That's his most useful lie, is tricking people into believe that he doesn't exist. That's the opposite of what like a possession would be. It would be proving that you exist. And why would you want to do? Because if I knew for sure, like, if I for sure knew somebody and I was like, I know for a fact they were possessed, I wouldn't be skeptical at all with Christianity or having. I would just be like, I don't know, but that there's something opposite. I want to be a part of the opposite of that because I've seen it. I've seen the possession or the demon or the whatever. And so, like, the banging of the drums to me is like the same thing as like possessing someone. It's like, I'm here, like you're banging a drum. I'm coming down the hill to kill you.
I'd have to sit with that. That doesn't, for myself, that doesn't feel right. I feel like they want to cause the fear, the panic, and that's kind of what gives them a little bit more power. So I don't know. And I think that people doing stupid things like Ouija board or whatever, I don't want to get into that. Whatever people think conjures something bad up, I think that gives them a free ticket to just come over here and raise hell and do whatever they want to do. It sounds like they just go crazy whenever they can breach our world, if you believe that. So I don't know, man. If there is evil and it's raw and pure as it says, then I think that they want to just cause, because then if that's the case, why would the devil do any destruction, war and murder and all this stuff? Why not just make this life perfect? Because I'm going to get you later, or I don't know. It just feels. It feels like, he wants to come over here and cause damage.
Or it's the sacrifice of the micro level effect of the immediate family and people who've like seen it seeking God. But I'll tell you right now, like there's not a possession that has been announced or even acknowledged by the Catholic, which they hardly ever do anymore. Like,
really?
No, there are. What I'm saying is even the ones that have been officially designated as a true possession from the Catholic Church, which they very much have gotten out of that. Even those were explained by like science and like mental disorder. So it's not it made a mass hysteria of like the devil's real and now all of the world worship God. You know what I mean? It probably on a micro level with that family, that probably made them a lot more religious. But overall, I mean, I guess if the devil's not getting that much negative press about it, like if people are fighting to say it's not the devil, then his plan is still working, kind of, because he got to torture, and maybe not him specifically, but
I don't believe that someone experiences that stuff and becomes religious. I don't. I think that why would witches exist? Why would people do black magic? That it makes people intrigued. I think it makes people more spiritual, but I don't think that pushes people to God.
With a possession?
I think
if they thought it was a demonic possession,
maybe for help.
I think it would. Maybe not the person if they don't live through it, but
okay. So we've all heard people playing with that kind of stuff, saying crazy stuff, or playing with the Ouija board, and something crazy happened. I don't see all those people running off to be religious. I mean, I don't think that's the logical.
But how many of them had a true experience, or like one person was moving the little triangle with the glass? Like, how many of them really had that versus someone who genuinely felt like their loved one or themselves went through like a possession, like a multiple day or weeks possession? I think typically what happened.
I guess that's a bigger. Yeah.
Do you think by default they would go to a god just because that's what it just seems like the thing to do?
I don't know if by default.
Like, well, I need something to say.
I don't know if by default, because you would have to have the theology in place. You wouldn't just make it up out of nowhere.
I mean, present day, like if something were to happen to me, I would think, oh shit, there's something here. What could help me? Like what's going to save me?
I think that's
say there's this demon or this random thing,
To play both sides, what Richard's saying is logical, because I think that that's what you would automatically assume, that someone experienced something crazy that's supernatural. Then you're like, okay, from this moment on, I know there's something else. But humans we're so lazy and prideful, and we just forget, and we're not, we take everything for granted, even supernatural experiences. Like, I always say I don't want to talk about it until I want to talk about it, but I've had crazy things happen when I was younger that I saw that real as day. From that point on, I wasn't the most religious person forever, because I knew and I saw it with my eyes. I did, and I became a teenager, and I just didn't care, and I just did whatever I wanted, and that was that. I did not care about religion until later in life. So
I dismiss things
the whole
too.
Wanting to feel like you. The theory that it's better to think and trick yourself into knowing than it is to feel like you don't know. Like, if that's the theory of like our brain being self-defensive, that works. That is not exclusive to religion and explaining religion, because it's also with science too. There's a lot of things that are huge leaps science-wise that were like, that's what happened. And then look at the past. How many things have been like, oh, we were totally wrong about that. This is what. Yeah. And at the time, that came from science. That came from like, this is how it is. Yeah. And I think it's susceptible to both. I think it's science is not this like untouchable. It's right because it's science. They have that same human flaw as anybody else would have like, oh, this must be what it is. And this explains it. And I feel good that I can understand it and I can explain it, until something else comes along that shows that it's wrong or takes away the theory. So it's not just like, it's not just as silly as like the Acheri being created and like, oh, how silly. They didn't know what illness was and they were killing it. And that was so long ago. We do that today. Like, we believe there's certain scientific beliefs that we simply can't prove. Like, we can't prove it all. It's all based on theory. And of course, there's some like elements of proof or whatever, like the Big Bang, the universe from what we can tell is expanding. But that's a theory that is expanding because it came from one central thing that came out. But it's still a theory. We don't know that for sure. Like, we don't. And also that doesn't disprove God. If that, you know what I mean? Like, it's. Yeah. But people like. Yeah. It's on both sides. And I see it so clearly on both sides. You could have the obvious thing that God gives you an explanation for a lot of things that you just don't have an explanation for. You could say that like cynically, but it's naive to think that science doesn't do the same thing. That science doesn't have these answers that are like, not really, you can't, I can somewhat see your logic of how you came to the theory, but I mean, we haven't been to the moon in like 40, like, and you're telling me all these like, and there's so many times we've been wrong. Like, we didn't discover germs. It wasn't like in the 1500s or 1600s. We didn't discover germs until like the 1800s or something. Like, it's not that recent. Yeah. that the scientific theory has been followed. And it's probably going to be one of those things in like 200 or 300 years. We're going to look back at the science we have today and look back at it like, feeble attempt to try to understand the complexities of our universe. Like, how silly did.
Yeah. Of course.
So to me, it's not I don't think of it as a dumb thing, or I just think of it as a very human nature thing. And it's interesting why we have that. Why does Gene say 1 to 10 on how many Hawaiian islands? Why does his brain, and by Gene, I mean every human. Why do humans have that? Yeah. Why do we have that? Why do we have that defensive mechanism of, I don't want to feel like I don't know something. I want to act like I know. Like we're not and you're not thinking that literal, but it's almost subconscious. Like your brain protects you from feeling totally helpless. Because let's be honest, most people in this earth, if there was like an atomic plague or whatever, wiped out all technology. Let's just focus on you, for example. Me, Gene, Omar. And all technology was gone because of whatever reason. How long would it? Sure.
Solar flare.
Well, okay.
Sorry.
But let's say all the people that know how to do that too. Like, let's say me, Gene, and Omar, we're the last people on Earth. Okay. How long would it take us to make a cell phone?
Right.
Wait, it's just us three?
We would never make one.
We never make one.
We live in a society where people have thought of that and coming up. But like when it comes down to most of us, dude, even making a car. Are we going to make a car? Let's make rubber. How do we make rubber? What's a piston? Mm-hmm. How does it work? There's so many things you don't know that your brain just blocks you from because it's available, it's there, and there's no point in thinking about like, oh my God, if it all went away, I would literally be, because we laugh at like cavemen, like, they hunted with spears. That's what we would be. If the world ended and it was just us three, we would literally become, that's the only thing we couldn't, okay, let's make a gun. How? How?
To hunt with? Oh yeah.
No. I'm saying weapons. Let's make a.
No, see, well, going back to what you're,
we would be just as smart as like early humans.
Wait, just as smart? I don't know about that.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is,
I think we could be more resourceful.
So? If it's just,
we have more of a grasp on
but just.
Yeah, we would know what to do with things.
I know that makes you feel good to say that, but think about in reality, like what could you really make? That's okay. Like what?
We can make a lot of things. So guns wouldn't exist
I'm saying
anymore?
if right now, the world got wiped out, and for whatever reason, us three were the only humans left on Earth.
Okay, there's still guns.
Let's say, for argument's sake, there's no guns. It's a theological exercise.
I think that. Okay, I'm not trying. If I'm wrong, then please steer us back here. But that kind of got a little bit in the weeds. What your original question was, why does Gene or people have that need to have an answer? And I was thinking, like what I originally said, is ego, and we're problem solvers by nature. Like legitimately, that is who we are. You know what I mean? Every single thing we're trying to solve. So it feels like we have to solve it. We have to solve it. Now you're getting into like a more complicated. Yes, we're not going to have any engineers on hand to engineer cell phones again. I don't know how to rationalize that, but we have a need to solve problems, and that's just inherent. It's what kept us alive and the top of the food chain.
We still survive.
No, the point I was trying to make is like we take for granted how much we underestimate how much we don't know, and I don't just mean me, Omar, and Gene. I mean, like most of the population has nothing to do with the technology that allows us to live the lives we live. It's really like a few people that discovered it and made it, and then companies that built it. But like, let's see, all of Kingsville even was like, or like a town the size of 25,000. If they were all of a sudden, every technology was wiped out, every other human was wiped out, we'd be basically back to caveman status. We would be making spears, and if we wouldn't know how to make a gun from scratch.
Yeah, I mean but
we have to hunt and fish for food.
So we don't make water. If water was taken away, we wouldn't know how to do it. But that's you're saying things that we don't do because it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, well,
you're right.
We wouldn't be able to depend on plumbing.
I don't understand the point.
I get what you're saying. It's we're so used to the conveniences that we have right now with electricity, running water. We can just go to the market to go get food. If all of that was wiped out, then we'd have to live off the land. So we'd have to start. People would die off, but you'd have to start moving closer to a water source, or else you'd have to travel to go get your water. You'd eventually have to hunt for food. People would probably go crazy, I would assume. So there would be that danger of violence. So just going to get water or going to try and provide for your family or anything would be a threat. Eventually, the ammunition would probably run
overall
out.
what I'm saying is we're not that far removed from early man. And we like to think that we are. We like to think that we're just so evolved, so much different. But when you really think about it, like, how much knowledge do you have of the technology that makes you feel not caveman? Like you're not living in the wild. How much do you really know about that? You yourself, without someone else doing that. And your brain protects you from that because, and just logically, it's not something you would think of because if it went away. But it goes into the same principle as like when people, they did the test and they're like, everyone knows how a zipper works? Yes, of course. Okay, here's the two parts. Here's the thing, like, make the zipper work. And then they couldn't do it. Everyone knows how a bicycle works. Of course, I know exactly how a bicycle works. No problem. Draw it, and we have this guy right here. He's going to make exactly what you draw, and then it would not work. Like the chain would be in the wrong area. It'd be generally looking like a bicycle, but the mechanics of it work. And the point of it was to just be so simple as like a lot of people fool themselves, or a lot of people don't have that at least awareness to know how much they don't know. And it seems to be a built-in defensive mechanism that we have. And I'm very curious why we have that. Like, why do we have that? And I guess it's survivalism. If that's what if you're looking at it from more of an evolution standpoint, it's more survive, because that's not going to help you. Like you said, we're problem solvers. So even from early, like even if we went back to being early man, like if every technology was wiped out and I had to be like, oh, I don't know, I can't make a gun, so I'm going to try to sharpen a stick and kill a hog somewhere, I guess. That's problem solving. That's me coming up with a problem. And through
like let's talk about villages. Let's talk about leaders, because to be a leader, to have a group of people, to have a family, you need to be a leader. You need to control their emotions, the stress, the anxiety. You need to be able to comfort people, and having an answer for them saying, listen, I'm going to do this dance. The rain's going to come this season. We're going to be okay. I'm going to do this crazy thing. And that means the evil jaguar is going to not come by this season and take our chickens. So it's also part of being a leader is being a manipulator in a positive way, kind of. So a good leader. Yeah. So that's inherently built into us. We wouldn't have been a civilized people had we not had that inherently built into our DNA.
And I'm just saying, like, we're not that far removed from those tribes or villages. I think that still happens today. And a lot of people say it like, just look at religion. And I don't want anyone to think that that's what I'm alluding to, because I'm also alluding to our scientific beliefs that we have also too. We are not that much different from a tribe that came up with whatever ritual for the jaguars not to eat the chickens. We're not that much different, because there's leaders today that tell us what it is and what to believe.
Totally.
And we're like, okay, as long as you know and you're handling it, we got NASA. I'm cool. I feel safe. I don't.
No. Yeah. Okay. So when you put it like that, now I start understanding what you're trying to say, because we do have other people with the answers that we don't need to have.
Right.
And if everything went away, we wouldn't know how to do it. But we're so like reliant on those things that we just don't know, but we're like, we don't have to know.
Yeah, we still have that.
Now I get it. That totally makes sense.
Our civilization still heavily relies upon that. Just like a village would back in the day, if there was some leader that was like, nah, I'm going to do this dance, and this jaguar, like you said, the jaguar is not going to eat the chicken. So it's just, to me, it's just, but also the fact that a lot of people don't think they're like that. A lot of people are like, no, I'm not that. I'm not like back in the old times with villages and shamans. Like, no, you're a lot like that.